Hi there! Welcome to On the Flip Side, a podcast for anyone who wants to live their best sales life. We're going to be talking to buyers, sales managers, SDRs, and A's about things like what does it take to be a great sales manager? Or how can you go home happy month after month? So let's dive right in. Hi, folks. Welcome to another episode of On the Flip Side with Wingman. I'm Kushal, and today we're joined by someone who's got decades of experience in sales and specifically in sales training, coaching, and really in knowing how to get your team to close more deals. And isn't that the dream for everyone? She's also the creator of the RevTurbo Selling System, which has been used by selling professionals really in continents all across the world. Great to have you on the show, Pauline. Thanks so much for doing this.
Thank you, Kushal.
So, Pauline, I know I gave a short little introduction, but I'd kind of love to hear more from you about you. And if you could maybe just tell us what's the first thing that you ever really sold?
The first thing I ever really sold?
Yeah.
Because I was born into a family of sales professionals, I think I was selling since the day I could speak. But I recall being professionally rewarded with selling boxes of chocolates door to door. And I'm pretty sure I was 8 years old.
Wow, that's pretty incredible.
Yeah. And then soon after that, I was selling roses outside of a liquor store. And I was like 12 years old. And I was the top producing salesperson to sell the most roses outside of a liquor store.
Wow, that's pretty nice. Okay, great. Pauline, could you tell us a little bit more about yourself and, just kind of your professional life?
Well, I've, as you shared with the audience, I've been most recently in my long career, business development consultant and sales trainer. And I became such because I had worked in selling teams, both as a representative as well as a manager for decades in various different industries. But they all had one thing in common, and that was they were business to business sales. So, business people selling to other business people, not consumers. It continued to frustrate me whenever I would join a new company. And as I was interviewing them before I joined them, I'd say, so tell me more about your sales methodology. Tell me more about your approach to closing deals, because I was always on a commission-based premise with the organizations I joined. And they would all say, yep, we've got one. Don't worry about it. Our top producers adhere to it. And I'd get involved with the company. I'd be behind my desk, behind my computer and phone. And guess what? There was no sales methodology. And so I would always spend my first couple of weeks interrogating the top producers to understand how they did what they did successfully. So there was that. So from there, I was able to develop my own business development methodology, just out of sheer frustration between the lack of communication between the departments of marketing, sales, and customer service departments. I found it horribly ironic that each of those departments were trying to communicate with the exact same end person, the audience, right? Yet they were having 3 separate conversations. So that was completely bizarre for me. So that's how RevTurbo came to be, is developing a methodology that would unify the entire blockchain, as it were, of the communication process to enabling customers to say yes faster, much faster.
That's really interesting, Pauline. When you talk about how teams really different teams, they're talking to the same client, but really doing it, in silos in that sense and in different ways. I think I'd love to hear a little bit more about how RevTurbo kind of solves this.
Well, I think number one is vocabulary. Everybody within an organization has to call an apple, right? So what I found, and I still find interesting today, is that you'll have marketing calling the end user, the audience, for example, and then you'll have the sales department calling the end user, the customer, the client. And then you'll have the customer service department calling the end user, the customer. Can we please call it an apple? Like, let's all call it one thing. So the same thing, in order for us to just save time right off the bat, saving time in order to understand who are we talking about? What are we talking about? So then you then use an overarching vocabulary for the activities that need to occur within an organization as well, right? So for instance, don't call it prospecting, call it engaging, right? Because prospecting can mean, do I research or do I actually engage with people? Which one is it? So eliminate those absolute pauses in conversation where I watch people literally try to translate what other people are trying to say within organizations. So imagine how the customer feels, right? They're going, what are you trying to say? So that, and as you can tell, I like to talk. So but I like my talking to be effective and take as little time as possible, because that's my position in life, is that it's short. It's super short, and time is precious. So let's continue to give our customers the gift of time by ensuring that we're understanding right out of the gate what they need. And if we could provide it to them, we do so according to how they like to be served, how they like to buy, not how we like to sell, but how they like to buy. So that's pretty much it in a nutshell. You know, I could go on and on about, oh, it's deeply seated in behavioral psychology, and many years of research have been conducted, but I won't.
I love that, Pauline. I think that you've just really hit the nail on the head when you say it's all about, prospecting versus engaging and really focusing on what the customer wants and how they want it and kind of aligning the entire company really around that. Yeah, I think that's something that everyone should kind of maybe think about more. So great. I guess one of the other questions that I have for you is basically around, sales training needs and how do, newer companies or smaller companies, startups, for instance, even know what to train their sales teams around? Are there kind of some sort of common challenges? What are for instance, the most popular trainings that you've seen? And beyond that, what are the ones that, or what are the training needs that you think companies should be focusing more on?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the main reasons why I'm excited about the existence of Wingman and its unique structure and offerings is the challenges it resolves. Because guess what, Kashil? I stopped sales training. I stopped training years ago. I told my clients, that's it, I'm done. I'm no longer training, because it was a waste of time and money. And I know for a fact that most sales training today, no matter what the organization is offering, is a waste of time in the traditional methods, because two things are involved. Number one, or three things are involved. Number one, it is unique to the organization, like, because it's unique to their audience. I define selling as facilitating the buying process. That's our role as sales professionals. When you look at the root of the word facilitate, it's facile, which is a French verb meaning to make easy. It's our job to make it as easy as possible. And I found with most sales training, other than my own, of course, is that it was making it extremely complicated. It was making the sales process and what the salesperson had to do extremely complicated. So I've been in the midst for years now, reducing all of my training courses down into one word. So time management, for example, has been completely distilled. Hours and hours and hours of training has been distilled down to one word: choice. If you think about it, there's no such thing as time management. It's finite. It walks forward with or without us. Self-management is actually the terminology it should be called. And how do we better our performance in self-management? Choice. Focus on choice. What do we choose to do in that moment of time will affect everything, right? Okay, so sales training, one word: listen. That's it. I know, exactly. See, I engaged you. You're ready for more, because this doesn't close deals, folks, right? It's this. And that's what excites me about Wingman, because the third thing that I was saying that's important within sales organizations. So you got the customer, you got the sales professional, the four things. That's a main reason why I stopped training. Oh my gosh darn. Everyone is at their own level of expertise, and giving a blanket approach, despite what people's level of acumen is in achieving results, is a waste of time and money. Listening to the professionals that are successful within an organization and replicating that success, that's the root of any sales training, in my opinion. And that's what we did, by the way. We took what was successful, we'd incorporate it into the programs, we'd regurgitate it, and then encourage or coach other people to emulate the same methodologies, right? So that leads us to the poor salespeople. That's number two. The third part of an effective sales training program is the manager. And my dream is to never see the word manager again. Nobody likes to be managed, right? Are you handling me? Are you managing me? But we all crave to be coached, right? Can you mentor me? Can you share with me what I could be doing better, what I should be doing less of, what I should be doing more of, right? And that again is what Wingman provides right there on the screen in real time, as well as capturing that library of what works, what doesn't. Brilliant, brilliant. I mean, organizations spend, there's crazy statistics, tens of thousands of dollars a year minimum per, sales teams for 10 people a year. And it's literally money flushed down the toilet. As we invest a little bit of money into what Wingman offers, then measure the results, folks. I'm not trying to sell it. I'm just trying to say, invest in whatever you want, but do me a favor, do yourselves a favor, implement it for at least a year and then measure the results, compare to the year before and see what it looks like. And if it works, keep doing it. If it doesn't work, stop doing it. Simple.
Got it, Pauline. I think it's super interesting how you're saying that. And I guess it's also a very controversial position to take in that sense, right? Because sales training is a major business, as you know all too well. So do you think that we should completely be replacing sales training with tools like Wingman that really kind of help you analyze what's working and what's not and replicating that success? Or do you think we need a more hybrid model that kind of has tools plus, like you said, people like being coached? And I think that really hit home, right? Because everyone craves coaching and mentoring. What do you suggest, for sales teams? So if we're not doing sales training, then what should they be doing then?
Well, and that's okay, so then we have to define what is sales training. So I think Wingman offers that sales training, right? But it's on an individual basis and a company basis, like individual company basis. Of course, utilizing, time-tested, proven approaches to win more business. But again, all organizations, as I said before, have to tweak it for their own audience. And hybrid, I'm not sure that's the right word in the context of, so yes, having a tool and then you have a manager. And that's the other thing I really liked about Wingman is that I hear often from sales coaches that I don't know what my sales team's doing. I don't have a clue what my sales team's doing. No, you don't. if you don't have Wingman in-house, period, end of story. Salesforce says that a sales manager can tell. No, that's not true. Things like Salesforce, which I love and adore, they're analyzing statistics based on, of course, what's being inputted into the system. And so that boils down from revenues, and then you have appointments and telephone calls, numbers. What's beautiful about adding Wingman into the mix, or something like Wingman into the mix, is you then are tracking, exactly how many sales calls is this person making, exactly how much time are they spending talking versus listening, exactly what they're saying, monitoring the changes of behavior in both the customer as well as the salesperson instantaneously, a recorded record of identifiable success and failures, and then rewarding people's successes. Not slapping people on the wrist about the failures they made. Instead, focus all your sales coaches on the winning performance, right? That yielded positive results. And those positive results are two things from clients. And that is one, yes, revenues that are handed over, hopefully on a recurring basis, as well as endorsements, right? So publish endorsements as well as endorsements to others, and they come out in the form of referrals. So if you're getting those three things by the end of ensuring that how you coached your sales members was beneficial because you provided them with something like Wingman, you then had engaging sales team meetings, coaching calls once a week minimum, because you need to measure daily performance of your sales teams, weekly the performance of your sales team, quarterly measurements of sales teams. Wow. In today's environment of instantaneous expectations of success, where people hand over their money in nanoseconds, those days are long gone, folks. You better be knowing now every second of what your sales team is doing. And there's only one way to do it, and that's to have a tool like Wingman. The other stuff, waste of money.
So I know we're talking more about sales coaching and really the better way to coach. And I think it would be useful for a lot of first-time managers especially, and maybe in more smaller companies and SMBs and startups to also understand, you've obviously seen a lot of managers and coaches and coach them over the years. What do you think are the major blind spots really that managers slash coaches have when it comes to coaching their teams, and maybe some inherent biases, or what do you think they kind of overlook a lot that really has you frustrated and like, you should really be focusing on this?
You tell I'm frustrated? And it's been years since I've been training. I that's an excellent question. And I think the first thing is they're not hiring the best way they could. There are many assessment tools out there in the workplace, but there are very few assessment tools that accurately determine whether or not that person's the best fit in that role. And Talent Sorter, for example, is a great provider of that. So that's step number one. I think step number two, the blind spot for sales coaches / managers, is that they don't fire fast enough. Yeah. Just, give people a real clear idea before you hire them based on those assessment tools, what they need to do and where they need to go. And the clear tool is the documentation. And we know now today the documentation has to be embedded into technology right there on their desktops, right? So fire people faster. And when I say fire them, I mean like, well, you move them into something else. You may come to the realization within the organization that they're better off in customer service. That's actually where their talents really lie. Or they're better off in marketing. They're researchers. They prefer not to talk to clients directly. They prefer to actually find out more information about them without talking to people directly. So allocate people where they belong, but get rid of them if they don't belong. Because that, the bad apple in the barrel analogy you keep hearing about, it's so true. It's incredibly true. It's like a cancer, a rotten apple in the barrel. So that's something I want to do next. I want to help fire people. All right. And then the third blind spot, you notice I'm not talking about sales training. Did you notice I'm not talking about, handling objections and closing better? That stuff doesn't, it's last in terms of, blind spots for coaches. So then the third thing is listen. I'm finding that, that they're not, sales coaches really don't listen very well. They talk. Like when I'm coaching, I do very little talking in the context of, I want to learn what works for them. And then I help them share with other people what works for them. Right. And that's how the peer-to-peer relationship is far more effective than having some gun from outside the organization come in. Yeah, those are the blind spots. Yeah, when it comes to should I talk about skills?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
I think the major blind spot is the lack of listening. The second blind spot is, never, ever, ever ask a question of a client that's already publicly available on the internet. You want to look like an idiot from the get-go? Do that. Right? Instead, use the time to say, I understand your organization's, been in business for 25 years. You have been with the company for 3.5 years. Is that correct? They're going to tell you yes or no. And people love to correct people, by the way. People in power love to correct people. The customer, they're the people in power. So let them. Well, actually, it's been 3 years and 8 months and counting. Fantastic. So how have your objectives changed from 3 years and 8 months ago to today for your sales team or your organization, right? Do you see the question I'm asking there? Like, and then you shut up and madly take notes. Do you mind if I take notes? What are people going to say? Generally speaking, what do most people say when you say, do you mind if I take notes?
Go ahead. Absolutely. I think they're flattered in most cases.
Bingo. So I'm going to be making some clicking sounds potentially on my keyboard, but I want to catch this. I want to catch all this. And I have found, just like you said, absolutely, that you may have to say, I found that they may say like 5% of the time, oh, I'm not so sure. I understand. And I want you to know that this information never goes beyond the walls of our organization. It's strictly for our internal purposes. That's where it stays. Is that okay? And then you'll have, that 5%, 4% of those people, 99% of those people say absolutely. So you're taking notes, you're collecting information, but here's where people miss out. They forget to say at the get-go of the conversation, what do you hope to accomplish in our meeting today? It could be as simple as, well, I want to buy. I want to buy from you. So then right out of the gate, go for the close. And by the way, speaking of language, I always felt that the word close has been mispronounced. It's actually close. Go for the close.
Hmm.
Bring them closer. Right? So, when you hear, so asking the purpose of what their purpose of the meeting is, and then of course clarifying how much time they have. Like before you book the appointment, they might have told you we'll have a half an hour together, but you now need to reconfirm a week later or 3 days later that how much time do you have, because their life has changed. And they'll tell you, they'll go, glad you asked. We've got 7 minutes. So you notice what I did there? I said, what do you hope to accomplish? That's first. Then before you go for the close, you ask, how much time do we have? And that's why I believe salespeople are the most intelligent people I'll ever meet, because their minds now are racing. They're computing, right? They're analyzing exactly how much time do I have to bring this person to my side and me bring my side to their side, so we have a merge, right? We have a win-win. So that's the blind spot, I believe. Listen.
I think that's incredibly useful, Pauline, to kind of really just shut up as people who are selling and just kind of give the other person a chance. Okay, so I think it's really interesting how we're looking at, managers really becoming better coaches. But I really kind of want to flip it maybe a little bit to reps who are on the other, who are kind of at the receiving end of that coaching. And, let's assume that these are people who are a fit for the job, right? But I'm sure all reps, no matter how good you are at your job and how well suited you are, you still will have challenges, right? That's what coaching is for and mentorship is for. So I think it would be good to understand how can reps make themselves more coachable,
Yeah.
where do they kind of meet their managers in this process? Because it can't really be only on a manager to do this, right?
Yeah, I think the expression feedback is the breakfast of champions summarizes everything you're talking about. People who wish to improve in anything they do, the ones that succeed in their improvement are the ones that openly receive the feedback. And again, that's where Wingman is brilliant. To see in literally black on a blue screen exactly, or a white screen, exactly what works, what doesn't, is everything. And it can hurt. It can really sting. It's supposed to sting, feedback sometimes. So welcome the negative feedback as willingly as you welcome the positive feedback. And then ensure, this is difficult for me, ensure that you turn off the emotion that's attached to it. Don't get defensive. Don't immediately get into blame mode, which is one of our coping mechanisms to defensiveness. Just immediately just take it in. Just be quiet again, right? Got to listen, absorb, and don't be afraid to say to your managers or your coach, this is great. However, this is a lot of information right now for me to take in. Do you mind if I have a break? And then wait for permission. They're your boss, folks. That's why you're receiving the money, the salary, but wait for permission and then go take a break. I'll never forget one of my favorite CEOs and sales coaches in my career, in terms of being exposed to working with her and her team. And she ended up selling her company for a lot of money. I'm not going to tell you who it was. But yeah, I will. Marla Cott, brilliant woman. And she would say to her sales team, do what the men do. She's talking to a room full of women, right? That are her sales team. Because she was whatever. She found that women were the better salespeople. Go to your car and cry like men do, right? What I'm trying to say is, to handle your feedback, if you need to go away and cry in the washroom, and if you're a guy and you need to go to your car, or women, you need to go to your car and cry in your car, go. Anything you need to do to process this feedback, do it. Then wipe away the tears, or straighten up the back and march back into your office, plop your seat, your little seat back into your seat, and get on with it and witness the improvement. Is that the feedback you're looking for that I can give reps? Because that's what will separate the winners from the losers every single time.
I think that's really useful. And I think it's good to hear how, it's obvious that when you get negative feedback, it is going to impact you, right? You are going to feel bad about it. But I think if you kind of, not that you need to ask permission, but you kind of, if we normalize reacting and feeling bad about feedback, I think then we also normalize, it's okay to get negative feedback. It's also okay to feel bad about it. But hey, take your time, shrug it off, and then come back stronger. So I think that's incredibly useful. Yeah. For people to the way to kind of take feedback, really, I think that works for all of us. And I'm thinking back to all of the times that I've probably taken feedback over times in my career and how I probably may have reacted to it. So I think that's incredibly useful as well. I guess, Pauline, yeah, I think there's so many interesting things that we've really spoken about and just so much stuff to really think over. Anything else that you kind of would like to share with us? I think really advice for sales managers and reps as well on really how to just sell better.
Just give people what they want every step of the way. Give your employees what they want, give your clients what they want. And if you're not able to give them what they want, then let them know right off the bat and let them know why. And then ask them how they feel about that. And then listen. And then give them what they want because it might have changed.
I love that. Yeah, I think really kind of listen seems to be the key theme here for everyone to keep in mind. Thanks so much, Pauline. I think this was incredible and really appreciate you taking out your time to get on the flip side with me and Wingman. Thank you so much.
It's been my esteemed pleasure, Kushal. All the best.
Thank you.